Okay, so today we're going to go over the updated post-patch Midwich, which has actually fixed many of the dead blink zones that you had to play against when you were playing Nurse on that match, and seeing how much it's changed in the tier list from where it was before. Previously, I ranked it at the bottom rank in my Nurse Guide tier list, and we're going to see if that changes at all after the post-patch buff of Midwich, or the post-patch fixing of bugs for Nurse on Midwich. So, yesterday I uploaded a video called 4King with Nurse on her hardest map, and well, apparently Midwich has been fixed, making it a good Nurse map. You see, when I ranked this as the worst Nurse map for Nurse in my Nurse Guide, it was only due to the glitch spots and the many dead blink zones. So, I decided to try out post-patch Midwich in some pub games, which is the footage you're seeing in the background, and holy shit, if you have the right build and playstyle on this map, I genuinely don't see how you can lose. You see, with how this map is laid out, you can blink to every single gen from the courtyard in the middle. So if you have a build like Ruin and Surveillance with the hard totem spots on this map, it makes getting any gens done incredibly difficult for the survivors. Another problem I believe killers generally have on this map is immersion and how to play around it, and this is why the third perk I would recommend comes into play. So many times, I had early game undying procs, which allowed me to switch chase or quickly blink from the courtyard to a completely unknowing survivor for a free hit. From some testing on this map, the only place I can still find that is bugged is the clock tower, and as far as I'm aware, this is still a complete dead blink zone. When chasing on Midwich, the only mind games the survivors could make with the blinks is double backing, so if you close the distance and blink to all corners, the survivors are really going to struggle to have any kind of long chase on this map. A lot of survivors will try and double back, which is the only mind game they have, and it's a complete 50-50. If they do that too early, you'll be able to hear the footsteps, and you'll be able to just let yourself fatigue and get a free hit. If they do commit to the double back, you should be able to tell just from the noise of footsteps that you can't hear anyone, and that's when you can go for your blink in the rough direction that they've went. The longest chase I had in any of these games was just because of weird movement, and even then that wasn't long at all. I think Midwich genuinely could be an incredibly good Nurse map now. Now that it's been patched, I think it is completely flipped from the bottom of my Nurse Guide, or the bottom of my map tier list, to the absolute top. Midwich is a really, really good map for Nurse now. It's actually crazy. As you can see from the survivor in this clip, this is the exact kind of counterplay I would expect from most survivors, or most decent survivors in this map. It's going to be a lot of faking and a lot of doubling back, just as if any survivor would be playing in the open on Blood Lodge. It seems like it's not a whole lot they can do. They can't really use the walls all too much. It's just a lot of like doubling back or straight line running, trying to change into different classrooms. A lot of it here is just map knowledge. Like here against the Bill, I knew that this was a lock-in section, so if I flashed my stay in one way, he would probably come out the other way, and that was exactly what happened. That was just me knowing the map, and having played tournaments on this map before, I kind of know the map layout, but it is generally just tends to be a lot of just whether they've double backed, whether they haven't, and then it's just down to if they're in a room like this Adam is right here, if they're going to double back, if they're not, and just being weird in the open area, knowing that Nurse can see you, but just trying to be as weird and move as weird as possible. As you can see in this clip, this is where I was trying to blink into the clock tower at all, but as far as I'm aware, where the railings are on the clock tower and the steps go up to it, that entire spot is a dead blink zone, so you can't blink there at all. It's a little bit of knowledge if you are ever playing Survivor against a Nurse on this match, that you can actually run to the clock tower and the Nurse cannot use her blinks whatsoever. Unfortunately, for survivors, if you are running this against the Nurse, it's a really small area, so the Nurse can actually just walk around with her low movement speed, and she will be able to catch up. Especially if both pallets are dropped, you can't really counterplay a Nurse here. It's going to be incredibly difficult. Just for Nurse mains, if you are playing on this map, or anybody that does play Nurse, if you are playing as killer, you cannot blink around this at all. There's no point even trying. It is entirely a dead blink zone. From where the railing is and the stairs are, the entire spot is a dead blink zone. You can blink past it, you can blink through it, but you cannot blink in the area itself. Your blink will just make you stay exactly where you were if you try to blink in this rough area. A lot of play on this map is very similar to how I would play on the game, which is, I would have my headset bumped up to the max, and I would be listening to survivors' footsteps from above and below. It's a lot of listening to survivors' groans and moans from between walls and above the survivors, listening to footsteps. That's actually how I got quite a lot of downs, was just listening to footsteps between the floors, between the walls, and then sort of determining where they've gone off of that. A lot of it as well is just kind of like deducting where the survivor is. If you don't hear them in one area, you don't see them in one area, then they've probably gone the other way. A lot of free downs and free locations I got from my Undying, which was very useful. You can see in this clip against the Zarina. The Zarina was actually completely unknowing. I got a free hit and pretty much a free down just off of that. It's another thing that you have to keep in mind that when you're on the second floor, you can't stutter your blink at all. So you have to be really conscious of that. And when you are blinking to corners, you might want to just look at the situation. And then if you can afford to not instantly blink as you blink to the corner, and see if you can get the survivor after you've seen them and you blink to the corner, or if they are within range that you do have to instantly blink once you've blinked to the corner and use your second blink, then you can allow yourself to fatigue if they double back into you, and then you've closed down the distance and you can get an easy blink hit, or you can just hit them right off without using any blinks at all. So that is my general playstyle on how I would play on Midwich. I think as long as if you get the whole idea of staying in the courtyard and blinking into your gens, and checking them and making sure that they're not getting too much progress early on, using your Undying to try and get procs, and seeing how to find the survivors early on in the game, because if they do play Immerse, then it can be extremely difficult. On this map, in general, it is pretty hard for the survivors to find the gens. There's no visual indicators that a generator is there without actually seeing the gen or hearing the gen's noises. So the gens will tend to go slower than any other game. Keeping the gens in check is the main thing that you want to do on Midwich. If you could do that, I think you could do really well in most of your games in pubs. And if you take into the account of not stuttering your blink on the top floor and making sure to blink to corners and closing down that distance as much as you can, I think you can do really well on Midwich. And I would actually move it up to potentially one of the best maps for Nurse in the tier list after reviewing it, after the post patch, and after all of the no blink zones have been fixed.